If you've clicked on this video, I'm sure you guys remember those sticky summer afternoons in the 90s, fans buzzing, sunlight bouncing off the CRT, and you glued to a controller while time just melted away. That was the golden age, folks, when games just hit different. I don't know, maybe it's because we were kids, but retro games still carry a certain charm. And in today's video, let's crack open that time capsule and revisit the legends that defined an era. And let me tell you, these 20 retro gems still pack the same magic, and you'll feel it instantly. Let's get going. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Back in November 1992, Sega dropped a sequel that not only matched the hype, but outpaced its predecessor in speed, ambition, and cultural footprint. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 took the Genesis to new heights, and if you missed out, it's begging for a revisit today. The story is deceptively simple. Dr. Robotnik is up to his usual eco-terrorism, turning animals into robots while chasing Chaos Emeralds to power his Death Egg space station. But the true magic was how Sonic, joined for the first time by his loyal buddy Miles Tails Prower, blitzed through colourful zones packed with loops, slopes, spikes, and water traps at breakneck speed. Gameplay evolved with the iconic spin dash, letting Sonic blast off from a standstill, while those 3D half-pipe special stages gave us a taste of future tech as we chased emeralds ring by ring. Two-player, split-screen races, power-ups, and the birth of Super Sonic made it more than a follow-up. It was a playground of momentum and mastery. Sonic 2 sold millions, earned awards, and locked Sega into the console warfight. Even today, its precision platforming and blistering pacing feel timeless. And we're just getting started. Another retro titan is waiting right after this one. Resident Evil 2. If Sonic was about speed, then 1998 gave us the exact opposite. Slow, tense survival in a city drowning in the undead. That's where Resident Evil 2 crawled onto the PlayStation in 1998. Directed by Hideki Kamiya and produced by Shinji Mikami. The setup is unforgettable. Rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy shows up for his first day on the job, only to find Raccoon City swarmed by zombies, while college student Claire Redfield searches for her missing brother. What follows is a desperate attempt to escape, while uncovering Umbrella's shady experiments with the T-Virus and G-Virus. Gameplay leaned into puzzle solving, resource management, and tank controls that forced players to think before they pulled the trigger. Ammo was limited. Herbs became lifelines, and typewriters demanded ink ribbons to save your progress. The real innovation, though, was the zapping system, where Leon and Claire's overlapping scenarios offered 4 unique playthroughs. Add in unlockable bonus modes like the Fourth Survivor and Tofu Survivor, and replay value went through the roof. Acclaimed for atmosphere, pre-rendered visuals, and nail-biting tension, it went on to sell over 6 million copies and became the best-selling Resident Evil on a single platform. Now, let's shuffle gears into another 90s legend. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. A year before Leon Kennedy's nightmare in Raccoon City, Konami rewrote the book on side-scrolling adventures. Dropping in March 1997 on PlayStation, Castlevania Symphony of the Night looked like another gothic platformer, but it quietly birthed what we now call the Metroidvania genre. Instead of stage-by-stage progression, you roamed an enormous, interconnected castle, as Alucard, Dracula's rebellious half-vampire son. No Belmont whip this time. You wielded swords, spells, and transformations, shifting into wolf, bat, or mist to unlock new paths. The deeper you went, the more RPG flavor unfolded, leveling up, collecting loot, summoning familiars, and stacking stats in strength, intelligence, and luck. And just when you thought you'd beaten it, the game flipped the script, literally, with the upside-down inverted castle doubling the challenge. The story built on Rondo of Blood-Richter Belmont vanished, the castle resurfaced, and Alucard had to break a dark spell while ultimately confronting his father in a tragic family showdown. While it launched to sluggish sales, word of mouth transformed it into a cult juggernaut. Critics praised the music, atmosphere, and groundbreaking design, even if the English voice acting was hilariously rough. Today, Symphony stands as a genre-defining masterpiece. And the Golden Age train doesn't stop here. Another 90s classic is just around the corner. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. By the tail end of 1998, Nintendo gave the world a reason to buy an N64 that wasn't just Mario. November 1998 saw The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time arrive in Japan and North America, bringing Hyrule into 3D for the very first time. The journey begins with young Link, pulled from his quiet life in Kokiri Forest by a dying Great Deku Tree, and tossed into a fight against Ganondorf, the Gerudo King, hell-bent on stealing the Triforce. The entire thing that starts as a child's quest spirals into time travel, with Link drawing the Master Sword and awakening 7 years later as an adult, forced to free temples, awaken sages, and ultimately battle both Ganondorf and his monstrous alter ego, Ganon. Gameplay was revolutionary. Z-targeting locked onto enemies, context-sensitive actions, simplified controls, and the ocarina itself became a magical puzzle box, with melodies warping you across the land or unlocking secrets. Exploration spanned horseback riding, dungeon crawling, trading sequences, and countless side quests, many rewarding with gear like the mighty Bigoron sword. With over 7 million copies sold, universal acclaim, and greatest game ever status on Metacritic, Ocarina cemented itself as a legend. And just when you think we've hit the peak, another 90s gem comes charging right after. Street Fighter III Third Strike? The year 1999 brought Street Fighter III Fight for the Future to arcades, running on CP System 3 hardware, and eventually making its way to Dreamcast in 2000. The gameplay depth was nothing short of legendary for its time. The parry system was already legendary, but refinements like red parries, executing a parry during block stun, demanded absolute precision and became a defining feature of high-level play. Add in a new judgment grading system, updated stages, rival fights, and minigames like Parry the Ball and the returning Crush the Car, and you had a technical fighter unlike anything else. The roster expanded with new characters, bringing back Chun-Li after a long hiatus and introducing wildcards like Makoto, Remy, the mysterious Q, and the shape-shifting 12. The fighters all came with a storyline, Chun-Li chasing down her orphan's kidnappers, Makoto trying to restore her dojo, Q hunted by the CIA, all wrapped into a tournament leading to Jill as the final boss. Though it wasn't a mainstream hit at launch, it later earned cult status and a competitive scene that gave us Evo Moment 37, arguably the most iconic highlight in esports history. And with that, the retro summer heat keeps rising. Super Mario Bros. 3. Before the world saw polygons and 3D adventures, Nintendo was already perfecting 2D platforming with a cartridge that defined childhoods. October 1988 in Japan gave us Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES, an adventure that blew past everything the series had done before. And the setup was classic. Mario and Luigi must rescue Princess Toadstool and restore 7 kings transformed by Bowser's kids, the Koopalings, making their debut here. 8 themed worlds introduced a brand new overworld map system, branching paths, mini-games, and boss airships at the end of every kingdom. For the first time, Mario wasn't all about running and jumping. He was flying with the Super Leaf, swimming gracefully in the frog suit, smashing enemies with the hammer suit, and even turning into Statue Mario thanks to the Tanuki suit. Selling over 17 million copies, it became the NES's third best seller and earned near universal acclaim. Even its stage play presentation, complete with curtains and props, gave it such a charm. And from one Nintendo juggernaut, we'll soon pivot back into another 90s classic that defined its console era. Double Dragon. Arcades in 1987 got a brawler that practically invented a new era of beat-em-ups. Double Dragon, developed by Technos Japan and published by Tito, threw players into a gritty, side-scrolling world with cooperative play that felt revolutionary at the time. The setup was straight out of an action flick. Billy Lee and his twin brother Jimmy fight through the Black Warriors gang to rescue Billy's kidnapped girlfriend, Marion. Along the way, you'd square off against punks, whip-wielding Lindas, oversized bruisers like a Bobo, and finally face the machine gun-toting gang leader, Willie. And if you cleared it in co-op. The brothers were forced into a brutal duel for Marion's affection. Gameplay brought new ideas that became staples. Grabbing weapons from enemies, using improvised objects like oil drums, and stringing together punches, kicks, elbows, and throws in a fluid combat loop. Its 4 missions, spanning city streets, factories, forests, and hideouts, gave players a real sense of progression, while cutscenes added a cinematic flair rarely seen in arcades then. With critical acclaim, massive earnings, and countless ports to home systems, Double Dragon set the blueprint for the beat-em-up boom of the late 80s and 90s. And from one bruising classic, the nostalgia ride keeps rolling. Contra 3, The Alien Wars. Explosions, aliens, and non-stop mayhem. 1992's Contra 3, The Alien Wars on the SNES was Konami flexing every bit of Mode 7 muscle the console had. Released in 1992, this was the third home console entry in the series, and boy did it raise the stakes. More like it launched them into orbit. Commandos Bill Riser and Lance Bean battle to save Earth from an alien invasion. All the stages crank up the chaos, with 4 side-scrolling gauntlets and 2 overhead levels where players rotate the battlefield to hunt down targets. Co-op mode let you share the carnage, but solo runs were equally punishing. Weapons defined the experience: spread shot, flamethrower, laser, homing missiles, and bombs that wiped the screen clean in moments of desperation. You could even hang from missiles mid-flight in one of the game's most cinematic set pieces. Bosses came rapid fire, making every few screens feel like a new climax. Known as Super Probotector, alien rebels in Europe, with robots swapped in for heroes, Contra 3 became a fan favourite and is still praised as one of the greatest run-and-gun games ever made. And from chaotic alien wars, we march straight into another retro battlefield.
You'll have 2 mission objectives. First, you're to rescue DARPA Chief Donald Anderson. and the president of Armstech, Kenneth Baker. Both are being held as hostages.
Metal Gear Solid. By the time 1998 rolled around, stealth got a makeover that made gamers rethink how they played. Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation, directed and written by Hideo Kojima, dropped players into a cinematic espionage thriller that blurred the line between movies and games. The premise put you in the boots of Solid Snake, infiltrating a nuclear weapons facility overrun by the rogue FOX Hound unit. You had to neutralize the terrorists, rescue hostages, and prevent a nuclear strike. The game had some layered storytelling, apart from all the action, radio chatter via the codec, and boss battles demanded ingenuity rather than brute force. Gameplay rewarded patience. Instead of mowing down enemies, you crept past guards, hid in cardboard boxes, crawled through ducts, and used gadgets like thermal goggles to outwit detection. Alerts triggered frantic escapes, while the Soliton radar mapped enemy vision cones, making every corridor a test of nerves. The camera shifted dynamically, overhead views, corner peaks, and first-person aiming to keep tension high. With over 7 million copies sold and near-perfect reviews, it cemented itself as one of the greatest games ever made, shaping the stealth genre and narrative-driven design for decades. And from covert infiltration, our retro ride barrels straight back into another all-time classic.
Good morning and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System. This automated train is provided for the security and convenience of the Black Mesa Research Facility personnel.
Half-Life. Valve really shook up the FPS scene in 1998 with Half-Life, their debut title, built on the Gold SAR C engine, a heavily reworked version of ID Software's Quake tech. Valve wanted more than another shooting gallery and hired sci-fi writer Mark Laidlaw to craft a story that unfolded without pausing the action. Instead of long cutscenes, players, locked in the silent shoes of scientist Gordon Freeman, experienced the chaos of the Black Mesa Research Facility in real time, with scripted sequences keeping immersion intact. The story kicks off when Freeman accidentally triggers a resonance cascade during an experiment, ripping open a portal to Zen. Aliens pour in. US soldiers arrive to cover it up by killing everyone, and Freeman becomes the reluctant one-man resistance. From turning valves to spray enemies with steam to launching a satellite, it had it all. Late game even throws in platforming with the HEV suit's long jump module. Half-Life wasn't just PC only, as it hit PlayStation 2 in 2001, was rebuilt in Half-Life Source. Fans even remade it as Black Mesa in 2020. Oh, and its mods? They birthed Counter-Strike. Legendary doesn't even begin to cover it. By December 1993, PC gaming had its watershed moment when ID Software unleashed Doom on MS-DOS. The entire thing that started as a shareware release spread like wildfire, pulling millions of players into a hellish fight for survival and kicking off the first-person shooter boom. You step into the boots of an unnamed space marine, later dubbed Doom Guy, posted to Mars after defying orders. When the Union Aerospace Corporation's teleportation experiments go horribly wrong, Phobos and Deimos become gateways to hell. Alone, armed with only a pistol at first, you carve through possessed soldiers, demons, and cybernetic monstrosities before taking the fight into hell itself. The 2.5D graphics engine made corridors feel alive, with hordes of enemies swarming in real time. Weapons like the shotgun, plasma rifle, and the iconic BFG 9000 turned survival into carnage. Limited health, keycard locked doors, and toxic hazards kept tension high, while power-ups like invulnerability and berserk mode gave short-lived reprieves. Multiplayer broke new ground too, introducing co-op and competitive deathmatch over local networks. Soon spawning a whole online scene, Selling millions and influencing everything from modding to speedrunning, Doom was the blueprint for an entire genre. And after surviving hell, our retro journey has plenty more icons waiting. Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest. Rare Games proved lightning could strike twice with Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest on the SNES, expanding everything fans loved about the first game, while daring to sideline Donkey Kong himself. The story flipped the script. Donkey gets kidnapped by the nefarious Captain K. Rool, leaving Diddy Kong and newcomer Dixie Kong to sail into Crocodile Isle and rescue him. Dixie's debut was a game changer. Her ponytail glide let players hover over gaps and access secrets, while Diddy brought speed and agility. Together, they balanced precision and creativity in ways the original never attempted. Across multiple themed worlds and over 50 levels, players battled Kremlings, buzzed through sticky beehives, dove into underwater gauntlets, and even raced skull carts along roller coasters. Animal buddies returned with flair. Rambi charged through enemies. Engardi pierced underwater foes. Squitter spun web platforms. And Squawks ferried players into vertical challenges. The game leaned hard into secrets, with bonus barrels, DK coins, and a hidden lost world that rewarded mastery with a true ending. Praised for its gorgeous pre-rendered SGI visuals, challenging platforming, and David Wise's atmospheric soundtrack. It became the second best-selling game of 1995. And from pirate hideouts to Kremling fortresses, this SNES classic still stands tall as one of the best 2D platformers ever made. Super Metroid. The SNES already had its fair share of masterpieces by 1994, but Super Metroid raised the bar so high it basically invented its own subgenre. It was the third entry in the series, and arguably the one that defined what Metroidvania really means. The premise: after delivering the last Metroid lava to a research station, Samus Aran watches it get stolen by Ridley and chases him back to planet Zebes. Then we follow all the descent into atmospheric caverns, mechanical fortresses and alien lairs in search of both the creature and vengeance against the space pirates. Gameplay embraced non-linear exploration. The automap, inventory toggles and 8-directional shooting felt revolutionary. Power-ups reshaped progression. The Morph Ball, with bombs, grapple beam, speed booster and space jump, all made Zebes a playground of hidden routes. Bosses like Kraid, Phantoon and Ridley blocked progress until every upgrade was mastered. And the finale, Samus rescued by the same Metroid she once saved, only to watch it sacrifice itself, remains one of the most emotional endings of the 16-bit era. Praised for its atmosphere, soundtrack and freedom, it sold over 1.4 million copies, and alongside Symphony of the Night, cemented the Metroidvania blueprint. The Golden Age just kept delivering. Final Fantasy VI. Square delivered a swan song for the 16-bit JRPG era with Final Fantasy VI on the SNES, released as Final Fantasy III in North America. Directed by Yoshinori Kitase and Hiroyuki Ito, with Yoshitaka Amano's art and Nobuo Uematsu's legendary score. It was the last mainline game built entirely from 2D sprites, and it went out with grandeur. Set in a steampunk-inspired world, scarred by the War of the Magi, the story centered on Terra Branford, a half-human, half-Esper soldier enslaved by the Empire. Her escape sparks a rebellion that grows into a sprawling ensemble cast, 14 playable heroes with their own arcs of betrayal, redemption, and survival. But what elevates the tale is Kefka, a nihilistic clown-turned-god who actually wins halfway through, plunging the world into ruin before the final act of resistance begins. Gameplay balanced classic active time battle with character skills, like Locke's stealing, Sabin's fighting inputs, Seals's runic counters. Magicite and Esper's reshaped customization, letting characters summon creatures like Shiva or Bahamut while learning spells permanently. With dungeons requiring party splits, relics altering commands, and even an opera sequence woven into the drama, it was an instant classic. Selling millions and still hailed as the best Final Fantasy by many, 6 was an RPG milestone. Wolfenstein 3D. Back in May 1992, ID Software shifted gaming into overdrive with Wolfenstein 3D on DOS, published by Apogee. Inspired by the old stealth game Castle Wolfenstein, John Carmack's 2.5D engine delivered the illusion of fast 3D corridors, while John Romero and Tom Hall pushed the design toward relentless violence instead of sneaky espionage. Players took on the role of B.J. Blazkowicz, an Allied spy trapped in Castle Wolfenstein, blasting through Nazi guards, dogs and mutants with everything from pistols to chain guns. Gameplay boiled down to hunting elevators, snatching keys, and surviving long enough to mow down bosses like the robotic-suited Adolf Hitler himself. Levels were packed with hidden doors, concealing treasure, ammo, and health, rewarding curious players who tapped walls in search of secrets. Lives and points tied the game back to its arcade roots, but the real hook was raw speed. Bodies dropped fast, bullets flew faster, and the pacing was unlike anything PC gamers had seen. The shareware model, giving away Episode 1 free, turned it into a phenomenon, selling over 250,000 copies by 1995 and spawning Spear of Destiny, plus countless fan-made missions. Dubbed the grandfather of first-person shooters, Wolfenstein 3D laid the foundation that Doom would soon build into a cultural earthquake.
Mission 1, start!
Metal Slug. The arcades were already noisy enough in the 90s, but Metal Slug turned the chaos into pure art. Developed by Nazca Corporation and published by SNK for the Neo Geo MVS. It dropped players into the year 2028, where Marco Rossi and Tama Roving of the Peregrine Falcon Strike Force blasted their way through General Donald Morden's rebel army. The missions sprawled across jungles, cities, mountains, and fortresses, with every inch packed full of explosions, screaming soldiers, and destructible scenery. Gameplay was a masterclass in run-and-gun design, simple controls, tight shooting, and a stream of weapon pickups that escalated the carnage. The SV001 Metal Slug tank changed the pace by giving players raw firepower and extra defense, letting you chew through enemy lines until the chassis finally blew apart. POW rescues added a clever scoring hook, granting weapons and bonuses, but resetting if you died before the level's end. Enemy soldiers cooking food, sunbathing, or panicking before being blown sky high gave the game a sense of humour rare in the genre. The hand-drawn animation was fluid, almost cartoon-like, and the two-player co-op turned missions into comedic mayhem. Its success spawned a long-running franchise, but nothing hits like that first wild ride. Hawk's Pro Skater 2. In 2000, Neversoft pulled off the impossible, making skateboarding not just cool, but legendary in video game form. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, published by Activision, dropped first on PlayStation before hitting Dreamcast PC, and even Game Boy Color, with later ports spanning Nintendo 64, Mac, Xbox, and Game Boy Advance. This sequel was the upgrade that cemented the series as a cultural phenomenon. The big innovation was manuals, letting players chain absurd combos together, stacking flips, grinds, and grabs into score-chasing insanity. Cash rewards became the backbone of career mode, with objectives ranging from collecting the letters of SKATE to snagging hidden tapes, all within tight 2-minute runs. Pull it off, and you could pump those earnings into better stats, gear, and unlockables, including Spider-Man, thanks to a Marvel deal. Multiplayer was equally chaotic, with modes like Graffiti, Trick Attack, and tag-keeping couch sessions endlessly competitive. And then there was the level editor, letting fans craft their own skate parks, long before user-generated content was a buzzword. With a punk and hip-hop fueled soundtrack and buttery smooth controls, critics hailed it as one of the greatest games ever made. To this day, it's still the highest-rated sports game on Metacritic, a kickflip into gaming history. Baldur's Gate. BioWare wasn't yet the RPG giant back in the 90s that we know today. They were the new kids, swinging for the fences with Baldur's Gate. Published by Interplay, it used the brand new Infinity engine running on advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Second edition rules, which meant dice rolls and character sheets, worked under the hood while you just worried about swinging swords and casting fireball. You began as the Ward of Gryan, a quiet orphan in Candlekeep, until assassins came calling and your foster father was cut down. Suddenly the Sword Coast opened up, a mix of taverns, mines, forests, and cities, crawling with mercenaries, mages, kobolds, and political schemers. Companions like Imoen, Minsk, Jaheira, and even cameo appearances by legends like Drizzt could join your 6-party crew, bringing the banter, quests, and occasionally moral headaches. The game lets you micromanage like a tactical genius, or just hope your mage survived long enough to cast sleep. Beyond the main plot of the Iron Crisis and your half-god heritage, Baldur's Gate lived on dialogue choices, reputation swings, and that feeling of actually role-playing. Critics hailed it as the revival of computer RPGs, spawning expansions, sequels, and remakes, and laying groundwork for BioWare's entire legacy. Chrono Trigger. Square unleashed Chrono Trigger on the SNES in 1995, a collaboration so stacked it was nicknamed the Dream Team. You had Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, Dragon Quest mastermind Yuji Horii, and Akira Toriyama, the legendary artist behind Dragon Ball, all shaping one project. With all that star power, you got an RPG that pretty much redefined the genre. The story starts simple. Chrono, a silent katana-wielding teen, attends a fair with his inventor friend Luca and princess in disguise Marla. But one teleportation mishap later, the crew is thrown across 7 time periods, from prehistoric dino wars to a flooded post-apocalyptic future, all tied to Lavos, a parasitic alien that will annihilate Earth in 1999 AD unless you stop it. The time travel thing isn't really a gimmick here. Your choices ripple across eras, leading to multiple possible endings. Combat ditched random encounters for visible enemies, and battles unfolding right on the field. The Active Time Battle 2.0 system let you chain devastating double and triple tech combos. Chrono's Cyclone plus Luca's Flame Toss equals a fiery tornado of doom. Originally on SNES, it later hit PlayStation, DS, mobile, Steam, and even the Wii Virtual Console. Nearly 30 years later, fans still call it peak JRPG. Pokémon Red, Blue. Leaping from time gates to linked cables, Pokémon Red Blue on Game Boy really made schoolyards into trading floors. You roam Kanto from an overhead view, building a 6-man squad to topple 8 gym leaders, then the Elite Four, and your annoyingly punctual rival. Between towns, tall grass spins up turn-based bouts. 4 moves per Pokémon, type matchups, status effects, and evolutions that kick stats into overdrive. The real hook was collection plus connection. Every cart hid version exclusives, so finishing the Pokédex meant whipping out a game link cable to trade, and sometimes evolve across cartridges. Battles over the link turned Rissis into metagame labs, sweepers, walls, and the eternal Who Brought 100 Alakazam. Energy management stayed classic RPG, HP, PP items, while clever capture math made low health and sleep your best friends before a Pokeball toss. Story beats keep you moving. Professor Oak's starter pick, Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle, Team Rocket's goofy, menacing schemes, and badges that unlock new traversal tricks. Simple sprites, sticky music, and that incremental stat climb made hours vanish. It was really praised for the social loop, kickstarting a multi-billion-dollar phenomenon and teaching a generation that sometimes you really do gotta catch 'em all. The nostalgia of 90s summers lies in the games that defined an entire generation. These 20 iconic retro titles still hold their charm, from pixel-perfect graphics to addictive gameplay. While modern games have their perks, nothing compares to the thrill of popping in a cartridge or firing up an arcade machine for that unmistakable feeling of pure joy. So, dust off those old consoles if you still got it, or grab a retro emulator and dive back into the golden age of gaming. Trust us. These classics are a time machine back to the best summers ever.
Eva, auf Wiedersehen.